Good morning. Welcome to the second Icon session. Today we're here to honor Dr. Patricia Donahoe and Dr. Leffall Fall. So welcome. On behalf of Steve Schweisberg, Bill Richards, and I, we're very privileged to have the opportunity to coordinate this session. And we have two giants in surgery who have made a great difference in our field. So the format will be that we'll have Dr. Goldstein, who's the champion for Dr. Donahoe's video, come and say a few introductory comments. We'll play the video, and then we'll have about 10, 15 minutes or so of comments from the audience. When you come to the microphone, please say who you are. You will be filmed, and all the comments and the video will be put together and placed on the college website for all to enjoy moving forward. So thank you, and without further ado, Dr. Goldstein.
Thank you. It's my honor to present Dr. Patricia K. Donahoe as a 2019 icon in surgery. I've had the privilege of knowing Dr. Donahoe for 26 years now. She is truly a role model for all surgeons, academic surgeons, and pediatric surgeons. Which he has accomplished as a clinical surgeon, as a researcher, and as a leader in the world of surgery is really remarkable and serves as a sort of the role, what we should all strive to achieve. Many of us owe our careers to her. She trained over 100 and some fellows in her laboratory, a generation of pediatric surgeons at Mass General Hospital. And those of us who have had the opportunity to work with her, and I see many of them in the audience, are truly grateful for what you have done for us and for the field. So please join me in congratulating Dr. Donahoe as an icon in surgery.
Dr. Patricia Donahoe grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, just minutes from Harvard Medical School. While her father served in World War II, her mother raised the children on her own, working to support the family. Dr. Donahoe describes her mother as an amazing woman who, despite serious lack of resources, raised her children to be optimistic and cheerful.
I became first interested in an inkling of interest in medicine when I myself was a patient at probably the age of 12, 13, and had to have emergency surgery. And I fell in love with my doctors and my nurses. I went to medical school at Columbia called the College of Physicians and Surgeons. It's an ancient and honorable name. The class was 120, and there were 10 women because at that time, Columbia was more advanced in its social engineering than other medical schools at that time. Then I did research from day one in medical school, and that just sealed my fate.
Dr. Donahoe did research in cardiac surgery throughout her 4 years of medical school at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons, during which her team won the Boren Undergraduate Award, which had previously been presented to legends like Dr. Judah Folkman. It was a different era, and a woman wanting to pursue surgery was practically unheard of. Indeed, Patricia Donahoe faced some ridicule from leaders and peers. But her husband, Jack, encouraged her to follow her dreams, while he himself was completing his MBA at Columbia, and they were busy raising 2 young children. At a time when there were no women in surgical residencies in Boston, Dr. Donahoe applied only in Boston, where her husband had been offered a great opportunity at the Ford Motor Company. Despite this challenge, she landed a general surgery residency at Tufts University's New England Medical Center, where Dr. Peter Altman was chief resident. Dr. Donahoe wanted to do a pediatric surgical fellowship, but was unable to obtain a slot until one opened up with Dr. Folkman. who would come to have a significant influence on her career. She then did a clinical and research fellowship with Dr. Hardy Hendren, who was considered by many as the best technical surgeon in pediatric surgery at that time. Dr. Donahoe's journey continued in England, in newborn surgery, with Professor Peter Rickham at Liverpool's Alder Hey Children's Hospital. This led to an invitation for her to return to Boston to rejoin Dr. Hendren at Massachusetts General Hospital, where she was asked to also develop their research program. Dr. Donahoe eagerly accepted this opportunity to pursue her two passions, surgery and research, and joined the staff at Mass General in 1973. Unfortunately, a number of surgeons were not supportive of a female colleague. Rather than being upset or defensive, Dr. Donahoe focused on her work, relying on her firm belief that one can earn the respect of those who were initially lukewarm to one's prospects.
When I first met Dr. Donohoe, it was 47 years ago. Pat Donahoe came to see me with the chief of pediatric surgery to see whether I would give her an appointment as a research fellow. I enjoyed meeting her very much. I thought she was extremely intelligent, very passionate about what she wanted to do, very self-directed in terms of getting the job done. And I was delighted to offer her a position as a research fellow. She turned out to be an excellent surgeon, a fantastically wonderful scientist, and actually a really great leader.
The science coming out of Dr. Donahoe's laboratory was appreciated outside the institution and recognized by the NIH. Slowly, Dr. Donahoe was welcomed into the fold at Massachusetts General Hospital. She recalls when her colleagues from Mass General supported her during her first talk at the American Surgical Association. It was a welcomed evolution, with Mass General becoming Dr. Patricia Donahoe's intellectual home for what has now been over 45 years.
I met Dr. Donohoe in 1993. I had just finished medical school and I started my surgical residency here at MGH. She's a terrific mentor. I would say that's if there's anything that I can accomplish as I get further along in my career is to make that the primary goal. She puts you under her wing and she has introduced me to people in the field of pediatric surgery, helped me with writing grants, getting into societies in surgery, and so making those connections is invaluable.
I first met Pat when I was just starting my own career as a junior faculty member in neurology at the Mass General Hospital. In that role, I tended to work extremely late at night and long hours on weekends, and almost inevitably at the end of the evening, as I was getting on the elevator to go home, I would bump into this amazing surgeon who was working equally hard, Dr. Donohoe, who gave me advice, counsel, friendship, and rallied the troops around these long hours for the purpose of academic research in medicine.
Many of Dr. Donahoe's mentors and colleagues inspire her to this day. She recalls fondly Dr. Folkman's unique manner in addressing the study of angiogenesis and his open-mindedness to any and all suggestions, avoiding the arrogance of leadership and control that dooms so many promising hypotheses and negatively influences young scientists. Dr. Hardy Hendren, another important mentor in Dr. Donahoe's life, influenced her with his perseverance to solve problems and to perfect operations, making the OR his own laboratory. He believed in adapting new technologies and creativity, traits that he and Dr. Donahoe have always shared. Despite Dr. Donahoe's many achievements, she believes that one can learn from everyone who comes into pediatric surgery, junior or senior. She has always encouraged young, aspiring surgeon scientists to pursue both surgery and research, even when others would discourage such a combination.
I would have to say that Pat Donahoe is really a phenomenon because she is so incredibly determined and so passionate about her work. No hurdle is too high for her to work on, and she has surmounted many hurdles to do some really, really outstanding science. that will last, I think, for probably ever.
This is somebody who was the first female surgical resident in Boston, the first female professor of surgery at Harvard. And I think that says a lot about who she is.
A successful pediatric surgeon, a renowned scientist, a beloved wife, and a mother of 3. Many wonder how Dr. Donahoe has done it all. She credits her husband, Jack, for making it all possible. Their mutual respect and support help them make sacrifices for each other and for their children. She is grateful for the gift of being able to raise a family and have a career without having to choose one over the other, for going to work every day knowing that she would come home to the kids and the husband she loves.
She's legendary primarily because she's been a phenomenal clinician scientist who has herself done great work, but who has also mentored and brought along probably 2 generations now of clinician scientists behind her.
Dr. Donahoe is a member of the National Academy of Medicine and the National Academy of Sciences, was president of the American Pediatric Surgical Association, and is the recipient of various prestigious awards, including the Dennis Brown Medal, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Society of University Surgeons, the William Ladd Medal, and the Flance Carl Award. When asked about her greatest accomplishments, Dr. Donahoe lists her top 2, raising a family and having a role in training the next generation of pediatric surgeon scientists. Dr. Donahoe's mentors are just as inspired by her as she is by them. Doctors Hendren and Austin congratulate her many accomplishments themselves.
Pat, it's absolutely wonderful that you are receiving this Lifetime Achievement Award, which is so highly deserved, and especially because you have still many productive years in which to bring more of your ideas to fruition. Retrospecting back 40 years, when Judah Folkman alerted me to your potential, and I was lucky enough to convince you to come to the MGH to join our fledgling service in pediatric surgery. Despite having only a 400 square foot laboratory, which you then turned into a world-class scientific center. Thank you and congratulations.
I am absolutely amazed by your many accomplishments, including all of your scientific breakthroughs, your solving the great mysteries of malaria inhibiting substance, and your many other scientific accomplishments. But at the same time, I'm so impressed that you were able to do this while you were the leader of one of the great pediatric surgical programs in the country. I congratulate you on receiving this honor, and I thank you so much for everything that you've done for medicine, for the MGH, and especially I thank you for our friendship.
I think it's a privilege of a lifetime, and I really very, very much appreciate it. I know that there are thousands of people out there who are more worthy than I am, so I would consider it a great privilege and a great honor.
We'd like to invite members from the audience to please come to the microphones, and if you'd like to share some reflections or some comments, we would welcome those.
My name is Mary Fallot, and I've actually known Dr. Donahoe for 37 years. I decided I wanted to become a pediatric surgeon in medical school, and when I started my residency program at the University of Louisville, Hiram Polk had just heard her talk at the American Surgical, I believe, because I recognized people there like John Hudson and others that I'd worked with in the lab. And he said, I just heard a wonderful talk, and I think you should go work with Dr. Donahoe if I can arrange it. And that's actually how I ended up there for 1 year. Pat has inspired me in many ways. She supported my own research effort in Louisville when I went back there to be on faculty, where I've remained for the 35 years of my career. She knows my family, my husband, my children. So I'm proud to call her not only my mentor and my teacher, but also a very special friend. And this is well deserved. Thank you.
Dr. Donohoe, could you, please.
Hi, Alba Richard. I'm a surgical resident at Mass General right now and currently working in the Pediatric Surgical Research Laboratories. And I just wanted to say that the injuries Dr. Donahoe takes in the trainees at the MGH and when they express interest in pediatric surgery is really tremendous and encouraging, particularly for those of us who want academic careers. So I know there are many people who have come before me and going to pediatric surgery from the MGH because of her influence, but it's been tremendous so far having her mentorship and guidance. And the program she's built in research in pediatric surgery at MGH is one of the reasons I chose to rank the MGH when I was going through the residency match. So it's really a privilege to be working in her laboratory and the facility she's built.
So Pat, being from Boston, I've sort of watched this for the last 30 years. Pretty amazing as a failed attempting person to be a pediatric surgeon, so I'm a wannabe. What was it like to start a brand new fledgling service working with somebody, incredible like Hardy Hendren, sort of in the shadow of Children's Hospital in Boston? It must have been an incredibly daunting task to take that on.
I sort of follow the dictum of Bill Belichick.
Don't we all?
Just keep your head down and do your job. So it's also been a fabulous place in which to work because there's a politics of excellence there at MGH, and you're not necessarily having to look behind your back to do what you want to do. So it's been my intellectual home for many years, and I particularly enjoyed working there with Dr. Hardy Hendren because he taught us perseverance, technical skills, but also how to use the operating room for innovation. And I was decidedly influenced by Dr. Judah Folkman, who had the capacity to turn over a piece of coal and find a diamond. So with those as inspirations and a small laboratory to begin with, we began to build developmental biology and pediatric surgery. And Dr. Austin also gave us both inspiration and resources, and he believes strongly that one could be a surgeon scientist, and was very supportive and allowed us to give it a shot.
So everybody knows that the Harvard promotions process is a particularly onerous and unique beast of its own. Have you ever really thought about your role as a trailblazer, as the first woman professor of surgery at Harvard?
In many ways, those promotions in that day were done without knowledge of the recipient. So I want to really thank people who were my mentors for proposing those promotions and for making them happen. And that day, you really kept your head down and did your job and had no idea of what the promotion process was. So I have to thank people like Judah and Hardy and Jerry Austin for making that happen.
That's really fantastic.
And I want to say that receiving this honor is just an unbelievable privilege. And I must say there are many others that deserve it. So thank you very much for those who made the nomination and for the opportunity to work in a great institution and with very smart people.
That's wonderful. Do you have any other comments that you would just sort of, as we close the first half of our ICON session, that you would like to share with future pediatric surgeons, trainees of all types, men and women struggling to succeed in academia? Any other sort of final words for wisdom?
I would say choose the right mate. You advance together and make sacrifices that are important for each individual's career, and pick the right place to work so that the environment is propitious for what you want to accomplish as an individual. So working at the MGH has been a wonderful experience and a great privilege over the years.
That's really fantastic. Really a round of applause for Dr. Donohoe.
Our next icon in surgery is Dr. Leffall Jr. Dr. Leffall died of cancer May 25th of this year. I'd like to have a brief moment of silence in his memory. Now, we have Dr. Edward Cornwell, who is the champion for Dr. Leffall, and I'll invite him to the podium.
Good morning. First, Dr. Richards, thank you first for the introduction and the invitation, and to Kevin McGovern, who did the editing of footage that's been made over the last 10 years of Dr. Leffall. My task is a labor of love to discuss Dr. LaSalle D. Leffall. I'm one of 6,500 medical students or residents that Dr. Leffall trained, many of whom would make the following statement that I'm about to make. Other than my own father, there's been no man in my life that's had more positive impact than LaSalle D. Leffall. The second task is to turn the sad fact of his death into a celebration. I don't want anyone in this room to be sad. And I hope that this video, and that I'm going to say something about why it exists, helps to make that transition. It would be, many of you in the room who knew Dr. Leffall would agree on some component of the fact that he was certainly a triple threat, a prolific author, one of the most decorated teachers in the history of Howard University College of Medicine, and a clinical surgeon with technical wizardry. But that probably would understate the immense and varied variety of skills that he had. Those of you that knew him through national societies would testify that he was one of the great academic surgery speakers standing at a podium. Those of you that knew him personally knew of his grace, his dignity, the humanist that he was, and always one who demonstrated professionalism. Some in the room may not have met or known Dr. Leffall, but is there somebody in your life that you know that when they walk into the room, you just feel a little bit better about yourself? You ever met somebody that their presence after they were with you and they walk out of the room, perhaps they're 6 feet 1 inches tall, and someone would ask you how tall they are, you'd say, oh, 6'3", 6'4", just because of that sort of magnanimous presence that they have. You ever met somebody that when they smile at you, they have that gleam in their eye and that you feel like you're sharing a personal secret? That's Dr. Leffall. And if you were a medical student, this surgical giant who would lecture students well past his 80th birthday, you would be, a little bit motivated by the fact that this giant knew your name and everyone else in the clerkship. He obviously memorized those names before he would come in to speak with the students. My journey starts back really before my own birth. Dr. Leffall was a freshman year classmate of my mother, my now 92-year-old mother, in 1945. They both entered Florida A&M together. She was 18, he was 15. He graduated in 3 years. It took her 4 years, so he entered medical school at the age of 18. My life's journey, which began at Freedman's Hospital, the predecessor hospital to Howard University Hospital, where I am now, the LaSalle D. Leffall Professor of Surgery, brought me back as the chair 11 and a half years ago. At that time, Dr. Leffall was approaching his 78th birthday. He had stopped operating, but he would still lecture to the students, still would get teaching awards. And after his 80th birthday, I watched this man come to work at 6:15 every morning. After his 80th birthday, wrote 2 books, gave a Charter Day lecture without notes. Some of you saw the lecture he gave as president of the American College of Surgeons, no notes, won teaching awards, and gave Charter Day speeches and others, and probably well past his 80th birthday was probably the best professional speaker, you would say. I could sit here and take the time of the video talking about him, but I just want to point out that he was secure in his breadth of knowledge, that he was always quick to attribute the people that were the reasons for some of the magical sayings, the mantras that many people who know Dr. Leffall associate him with. And when I became chair, I thought it was important to get some of these things on tape. Little did I know over the years as we put the videos together that Mr. McGovern so nicely merged, little did I know that it would bring me to this day, to this task, to show those in his absence. I didn't know, and nor did we know at the time that I was invited to do this, that Dr. Leffall would not be with us at the time. So I'm so pleased that we had an opportunity to capture much of what is the essence of LaSalle D. Leffall. I look forward for you seeing the video. I'm fortunate to be one of thousands of medical students who graduated from the Howard University College of Medicine, who were impacted by the outstanding teacher, master surgeon, humanist that is Dr. LaSalle D. Leffall. Dr. Leffall was born in 1930 in Quincy, Florida, and out of modest beginnings in the segregated South grew a richness of instruction that he and his sister would receive from their parents, who were both teachers. He went to Florida A&M College, FAMC, later to become known as FAMU, at the age of 15. Dr. Leffall entered the Howard University College of Medicine at the age of 18 and graduated just shortly after his 22nd birthday. Could you tell us a little bit about the inspirations, the events or the heroes that prompted you to go into surgery in general, and cancer surgery in particular?
Very well. When I came to the Howard University College of Medicine in September 1948, Dr. Charles Richard Drew was chairman of the Department of Surgery. And I'd heard so much about him and what he had done in surgery, what he had done in research as far as blood and plasma preservation. And having heard so much about him and his leadership in surgery, his leadership at the Department of Surgery here at Howard, I said, I want to be a surgeon. I want to become a surgeon.
On March 31st, 1950, Dr. Leffall was a sophomore medical student attending the last lecture that Dr. Drew would ever give.
Students don't have class at Howard on Saturday night, the medical school, but when I was a second-year student, we had class on Saturday. And I can remember very well, we were having class in the medical school. Dr. Walter Booker, professor of pharmacology, was lecturing to us. And I used to always sit on the front row because I didn't want to miss anything. I'm sitting on the front just writing all these notes. And a person came in, I think it was somebody we call Long Tall Miller. Miller was about 6'4", that was Long Tall Miller, a laboratory technician in the Department of Pharmacology. And he whispered something to Dr. Booker. I couldn't hear what he said. I'm on the front row, but I still couldn't hear what he said. But Dr. Booker's face turned ashen. And he then turned to Miller and said this: "You shouldn't joke like that on April Fool's Day." And I can always remember that because it was April 1st, 1950. I was a sophomore medical student. He said, "You shouldn't joke like that on April Fool's Day." And what did Miller say? He said, "Oh, I wouldn't joke like that." In other words, you might think about saying something about you left the lights on and all that, but you're not going to say the chief of surgery was killed in an automobile accident. So Dr. Booker then turned to us and said, "I have some very sad news for you. Our chief of surgery was just killed in a tragic automobile accident just outside Burlington, North Carolina, on his way to a medical surgical meeting in Tuskegee, Alabama. Class is dismissed." It was just hard to describe the way we felt. This man was so big, we wondered if the medical school would survive. Now, we know full well that no one person is bigger than any institution. We know that. But still, he cast such a giant shadow, such a big shadow, that we were wondering, could the medical school survive? Well, obviously it did survive, but that's how we felt, just totally saddened. And how could this be? And that was it. A Saturday morning, April 1st, 1950, in a class in pharmacology, being lectured by Dr. Walter Booker.
I understand that small hospital where they were taken, trauma care being what it might have been in 1950, totally different from what we think about 55 years later. But the hospital, the only other person hospitalized would be Dr. Ford. And in fact, he was hospitalized. He was put in a room in the basement set aside for black patients. Perhaps that's why people have mistakenly assumed that at this hospital in the segregated South, that all that could have been done for Dr. Drew was not done. Yes. Could you set that record straight?
I would be happy to do that. And when I went down to Burlington, North Carolina, I should mention, in April of 1983, 33 years after Dr. Drew died, I went down to Burlington, North Carolina, and I wanted to talk to the people who had helped take care of him. The administrator of the hospital was still there. One of the surgeons who took care of him, one of the Canola brothers, was still there. A couple of the nurses were there, and one black was there. He happened to be an orderly, which is what you would expect, and if there were going to be a black person employed at that hospital. And I had the chance to talk to all of them. And going there, I found out that when Dr. Drew was brought in, that they knew that he was coming. But I should mention this, because when I was there was a lady who was a nurse anesthetist, Miss Lucille Crabtree. She was not there when I went down there in April. And she said, "But Dr. Leffall, I'm coming up next month with my son, his wife, and my grandson. I'll be happy to talk with you then." So if I can jump to that lets you know what happened then. She said, "We only ran one room on Saturday. And I had a patient on the table. I was getting ready to give my patient some Pentothal. And then I was going to put in a tube for the operation we were going to do. They called from downstairs and said, there's been a very bad accident out by Hall River. They're bringing in some patients. One of them is critically injured." And she said, "I am so glad I hadn't given my patient on the operating room table some Pentothal, because I could not leave a patient whose life I have placed in jeopardy by giving him some Pentothal, something that decreases respirations, and go to a patient whose life is in jeopardy. But I hadn't given anything." So she said, "I put my endotracheal tube and my laryngoscope in my pocket. I ran downstairs. And when Dr. Drew came in, I was downstairs waiting along with other people who were there." She described this to me. She said that his pupils were dilated, both. There was blood coming from his ears. He had a crush wound of his chest and an avulsion wound of his thigh. And she said he was breathing in a very shallow manner, very shallow. And she said he was in deep shock and his blood pressure was in the low numbers, and she thought it was in the range of the 60s. And I'm going to mention something about his record in a moment. So she said then what she did, she got an endotracheal tube, a laryngoscope put the endotracheal tube in, and she said, Dr. Leffall, we were all sitting down, she said, not a bragging eye, but a sincere, thoughtful, genuine eye. She said, I was with him from the time he arrived until the time he died. I put the endotracheal tube in. I gave him IV fluids. Not that I was the only one there. Other people were there too, but we cared genuinely about him. And we were thinking about transferring him to Duke, only because Duke is a university. Alamance General Hospital is a little hospital. But we didn't have the time to get him there. His condition did not allow us to transfer him to Duke. I then asked her, did he get any plasma or blood? And she said, he did receive plasma, but they didn't have blood then. She said, Dr. Fall, we were a little hospital. We didn't have blood at that time. And by the time blood was available, he was dead. And so, based on everything that we know, the accounts from Dr. Bullock, who was a trained surgeon who was in the car, they were in Dr. Bullock's car, as a matter of fact, when the accident occurred. The two residents, surgical residents, who themselves knew about trauma care, said that Dr. Drew received the best care that could be given at that time in our history in a hospital of that size. Knowing, however, what was going on in the South at that time, a myth has been created about Dr. Drew's death that we probably will never erase. Because I go around, I give a lot of lectures on Dr. Drew, and some people look at me as though I'm really being a traitor to tell the truth. And I said, no, we have to tell the truth. That's the one thing we must do. We must tell the truth.
And after that, one of the men he had trained, Dr. Jack White, had gone to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center for his training in surgical oncology. And that was related to the fact that Dr. Drew knew the men who were in charge of the program at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Then when Dr. White came back, he talked so much about surgical oncology and what he had learned at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I then said, well, I want to do that. Then Dr. White arranged for me to go to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center from 1957, July 1957 to December 1959. Another surgeon I'd like to mention is Dr. Burke Mickey Syphax, who was called Master of the Abdomen. He was a great diagnostician and a great technical surgeon. And I think about the men whom I knew who had taught me so much. The three people in surgery, Dr. Drew, Dr. Syphax, Dr. White, but there's one other, my professor of anatomy, Dr. W. Montague Cobb, professor and head of the Department of Anatomy. I learned so much from him. Those four people were my heroes in the College of Medicine. We were advised as medical students to read a book called Equanimitas by Sir William Osler. And that's why today my favorite quotation is equanimity under duress, which means maintaining that degree of calmness and tranquility that will allow you to do what's appropriate in any circumstance. Sir William Osler has been called the father of modern medicine. He was professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins and Regis Professor at Oxford. On one occasion, he was asked, what's the secret for success in medicine? He said, I'll tell you what it is. I'll even spell it for you. W-O-R-K, work. It's the open sesame for all portals, the true equalizer in the world, the true philosopher's stone which transmutes all the base metal of humanity into gold. The stupid among you will make bright. The bright it will make brilliant, and the brilliant it will make steady. With this magic word in your heart, all things are possible, and without it, all is mere vanity and vexation.
Because of your work, you're well known, obviously, in our profession, through the college, through various surgical societies, but one is as likely to see you with presidents and former presidents, with dignitaries from across the spectrum.
There's one president I got to know quite well, that's President Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush. He worked with us on a program at MD Anderson Cancer Center. Great progress has been made, and with your help, we believe we can continue to make progress. And they were very active in something we call the National Dialogue on Cancer, or C-Change.
Could you touch on some of the things you had to deal with as it relates to prevention?
One of the main things that I had to deal with was something called cancer health disparities. Despite the increased incidence of cancer in African Americans and Hispanics, So often they could not get into the system, could not have a diagnosis made, could not be treated. That was something we had to deal with. And as a member who was very active with the American Cancer Society, the society sponsored the first conference on the challenge of cancer in Black Americans. We also included other ethnic groups where there was a cancer health disparity, and we want to be absolutely certain that all persons, men, women, children, receive the very best care in terms of diagnosis and treatment. So that's been a major problem.
When one takes a walk down the hallway that connects the Howard University Hospital with the Howard University College of Medicine, you have the opportunity to walk by the sequential photographs of graduating med school classes ranging all the way back into the 1920s. You'll notice that starting from the early 1960s, when Dr. Leffall joined the faculty, going forward to nearly 50 years, Dr. Leffall is virtually a perennial honoree among the very few honored faculty that are named by each graduating class. Indeed, it's remarkable to note that there are parents and their children who are graduates of Howard University College of Medicine who are both members of classes that honored Dr. Leffall. A span of teaching excellence that is unmatched in the history of the Howard University College of Medicine.
Dr. Drew had a famous statement he would make, particularly when he spoke to students. He said, "Excellence of performance will transcend artificial barriers created by man." I never forgot that. What he was saying is, if you do it well enough, people have got to notice it.
Please step up to the microphone. Tell us your comments about this extraordinary man and video. Yes, sir. Front microphone there.
Hi, Nabil Zafar. I'm one of the Howard graduates, still a trainee. I'm a fellow right now in surgical oncology. I came to America in 2012 for residency at Howard. Fortunately, I consider myself very proud and fortunate to be one of the last trainees who was able to do clinic with Dr. Leffall. At that time, the night float person was assigned to do clinic with Dr. Leffall as his clinic started at 3 a.m. I remember going into the clinic at 3 in the morning and seeing a big line of patients, excited, happy, honored to be with Dr. Leffall and have him treat those patients. And that was my first interaction with him. And I was just mind blown. I was like, wow, so many patients come so early and they just adored him. That was one of his last clinics that he did, but we benefited with him coming to our grand rounds and M&Ms and being involved in the teaching aspects of our program. Things that strike most with me was how my faculty and my mentors looked up to him and adored him, and they got inspiration from him. And these are people that I got inspiration from. And then I feel like when we talk about an icon in surgery and how that translates between generations, I'm certainly lucky that I benefited from him. And we all heard, there are a lot of dictums, and we heard the dictum, excellence in performance transcends artificial barriers created by man. As a foreign medical graduate on a visa in America, I saw Dr. Leffall embody that. I saw my faculty, my mentors embody that. And that's where my drive and passion came from. And I benefited a lot from him. In 2019, like Dr. Cornwell said, decades and decades worth of inspiration and mentorship from Dr. Leffall. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabil. As others may come up, let me just amplify on that. Thank you, Nabil. What you just heard was the generational link. Dr. Leffall, until 6 months ago, was the living link between Charles Drew and those of us who were born after his death, because he sat in that last class. The reason that video exists is it was so inspirational. Everyone in here who's a Howard graduate knows that story. They know about April 1st, 1950 because of that statement. You shouldn't joke that way on April Fool's Day. And I remember saying, we have to get that on video. But the same link that Dr. Zafar just referred to, our heroes, Dr. Drew down to Dr. Leffall, and those of us who idolize Dr. Leffall, leads to stories like this. I knew in the 1970s that Dr. Leffall started lining up, seeing patients 4 or 5 in the morning on Saturday and would go all the way into the afternoon, 1 day a week. And he had such a presence when he'd walk in the room. It might be 90 seconds, but those patients just felt better being around him. When I came back to the chair of the department in 2008, quite a few years after he stopped operating, there was still this cadre of breast cancer patients that would still come to see Dr. Leffall in clinic. And I had to chuckle the first time I was taking trauma call on a Friday night, having come back as a chair. We were down in a trauma resuscitation about 3:30 in the morning, and one of the medical students said, "Can I be excused to go over to Dr. Leffall's clinic? He'll be starting pretty soon." Now, nobody would set that up as a model for having a clinic today, and yet these patients were so inspired that they were still coming to see Dr. Leffall during the so-called famous Leffall hours.
Hello, my name is John Kevin Dole out of Tampa, Florida, and just wanted to say amazing presentation, giving an insight as to who Dr. Leffall was, but just had a quick comment. I have an opportunity to do research with Dr. Alexander Rosemurgy in Tampa, and something that he would repeatedly bring up whenever he brought up Dr. Leffall was that no matter where he was always the smartest man in the room. So it was great to see a little bit more about him. Thanks.
That's true. You know, for those of us, we talk about, diversity a lot, and sometimes it spills over into things that will never have sustainability. Numbers, quotas, white guilt never have sustainability. Dr. Leffall, at the age of 18, after 3 years of pre-med studies at Florida A&M, was the #1 ranking pre-med student at Florida A&M. In 1948, 47 going into 48, when he would have entered medical school, because the impact of the Flexner report some 25 years earlier, only 2 medical schools of the land-grant institutions, predominantly black, survived that Flexner report: Howard in Washington, D.C., and Meharry in Nashville. And therefore, statistically, virtually every pre-med student of color in the United States would be applying to those 2 schools. Extremely competitive. And a lot of the southern schools did not have a focus on those exams that we now call the MCAT exams. So here he was with this outstanding curriculum, 4.0 GPA, and couldn't get an interview. And it took the president of Florida A&M. Can you imagine a university president lobbying his counterpart, Dr. William Gray, the president of Florida A&M, father of William Gray, the congressman who's the United Negro College Fund head, lobbied the president of Howard on behalf of his 2 top pre-med students to get an interview. They got an interview. They impressed. They got admitted in 1948 to the class of 1952. They were the #1 and 2 ranking graduates in the class of 52, and they almost didn't gain admission. So when you want to be inspired about spreading a broad net to look for those who are capable of doing the job, you always look to that story of Dr. Leffall, one of the great academic careers in that College of Medicine, and he needed the help of a university president to even get admitted.
Wow. Well, that's really incredible. Tell us, how certainly there were many times he lived in the segregated South. He had to be in the back of the bus, separate restrooms. How did he overcome that overt racism, discrimination, putting him down on a daily basis?
He wrote 3 books, and he talks about that in his first book called No Boundaries. His father and mother were both teachers, and part of that second generation post-slavery that understood, particularly in the South, that it was only going to be education was going to lead to a better life. And his parents had the audacity to tell him that with hard work, good personal characteristics, there would be no boundaries. You want to talk about faith? That's a faithful message to give to your child in the 1930s and 1940s in America. But they were both teachers. His discipline, his academic potential anybody that knows him is quite obvious. And he always spoke of that opportunity that he got through the kindness of others. A university president on his behalf. His father died after his second year in medical school, going into his third year. He was working in the summer up in Martha's Vineyard, and a patron, a white patron where he served in the cafeteria there, got to know him, and Dr. Leffall, and saw him a little down, and he asked him what was wrong. Dr. Leffall told him, "My father died. I think I may have to drop out of medical school." He actually asked him for a loan. The man sent not a loan, he sent the entire tuition for Howard for that year. I think it was $500 back then, and a note saying, "You take this money, pay your tuition, and you always reach back to help those that you can help." And anybody that knows him knew that is exactly what he did. So it's a combination of faith, discipline, and just great parenting. The Florida A&M, on a personal note, as I mentioned, my mother was his classmate. My son now is a grad transfer football player for Howard. They play Florida A&M in 3 weeks. So we're going to go down there early. I've never been to Florida A&M. And with my mother, we're going to get a chance to take a little tour of the college in Tallahassee, and hopefully Howard beats Florida A&M, and Michael Cornwell catches a few balls. So that would be a great weekend. But there are LaSalle, Leffall scholarships, hallways down at Florida A&M in plenitude.
Well, I really want to thank you, Dr. Cornwell, for producing such a fantastic video that really epitomizes the life and the inspiration that Dr. Leffall has been for everyone.
Thank you. Labor of love. Thank you.
I'd like to ask everyone in the audience, please fill out your evaluations of this session, and also look at the previous Icons video. You can Google or go to the American College of Surgeons website and just put in icon. If you put in icons in surgery, you'll not find it. Just put in icon, and then go see the previous icons, okay, videos. Again, very inspirational. People like Claude Organ and others that are inspirational videos. And then click on the donation, because we need funding to continue these projects, to create these videos that are inspirational and get down on video, digital video of these living legends. And I'd also ask you, if you have your own inspirational icons that you'd like to be a champion for and create a video honoring their life, please email myself, Dr. Nabnet, Dr. Schwartzberg. Let us know. Nominate your own personal icons in surgery. Barry, Steve, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, you know, the message of honoring our icons, timing is everything. Imagine if we had delayed this by 1 year, we would have never gotten the chance to have Dr. Leffall's, some of his very last musings of life as a professor and a great teacher. And so it's really important to keep this going, because the legacies are lost. A lot of film that's on videotape is hard to retrieve, but to be able to create a permanent digital record of some of the greatest surgeons of our era, men, women, of all different, backgrounds, is a real opportunity to help create the future as well. So we'd like to, thank you all so much. Barry, any final words?
No, thank you for joining us today, and let's all stand in honor of Dr. Leffall and give a round of applause.